Welcome back to my shop. Tonight I'm going to try another demo video or sample video or practice video, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to do something totally different tonight from what I've done previous nights. I've gotten some comments back in my test videos that my voice is not coming through clearly. And last night I tried, or 2 nights ago I guess it was, I tried without my air helmet on, and my allergies just did not like not having the clean air. So I'm going to try doing a video tonight where I do just a little bit of talking here at the beginning, and then I'm going to turn the put my air helmet on. I'm going to turn the sound off. I'm going to do all the work, and then I'll come back and overdub the sound, and I'll talk based on what's going on the video. I'll see if that works, makes into a good video rather than having me talk during the turning session. I'll see how that works out. That's not going to work for a live demo, but for creating YouTube videos, maybe this will give us a better sound. So what I've got here tonight, this is a piece of spalted red maple I got from a friend, Rick. This is a tree planted 30 some years ago, and decided to cut it down. He didn't like it in his backyard anymore. So I was lucky enough to get some of these pieces, and they just have some gorgeous grain in them. I think most of the spalting came while it was drying at my house. I've had this probably 3-4 years now. I rough turned it and put it in chips, dried it out, and then once it got fairly dry, I pulled it out, and it's been sitting in air drying since then. It's a little off from being round, but overall it's pretty darn round. But all I'm going to do is the same thing I did last night. I'm just going to jam it up against the chuck. So let me see if I can change cameras here, and you can see that. So there's the chuck. It's a 70 millimeter. I'll do what I did last night. I'll open it up a little more. Gonna get a few more of those jaws opened up at the top there. So I'm gonna stick that on. I'm gonna run up the tailstock. I'm just gonna pinch it between the tailstock and we'll go from there. So there's the end view. You'll be able to see my turning from the end. Again, it's just held by the tailstock against the jaws, which has, it's rough. It's a piece of metal, and the wood just pushes into it when you turn the tailstock up. It's a nice thing about the big lathe. You can put a lot of pressure on the tailstock. So anyhow, I'm going to start with that. I'm going to turn off the volume so you don't pick up any of the noise from the air helmet, the background noise here in the shop. I'm going to turn the entire thing, sand the entire thing. I'll videotape it, clean it up like I normally do, and then I will dub sound on top and see how that works, and we'll see if we make a better video this way. So I'm going to get going. First thing I'm going to do is turn all the sound off, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to start the returning process by taking a skew chisel and working on that tenon. I need to get the tenon round. So get the bowl up to a good speed, probably between 800 and 1000. Laying the skew flat, and I'll start to come in. Sorry, it's off the bottom of the picture as it begins there, but it'll come in at the bottom there. Just trying to get enough off of that, and like I said, it's pretty close to round. So just trying to get enough off to make sure it's round. Actually came in on the angle just to scrape it a little bit, just make sure I got it completely round. So when I turn the bowl around, it's running true. I'll test it out here, make sure that's all good. I got good contact all the way around as I turn that. And now I can go in with the bowl gouge and start to smooth the surface out and get rid of all the distortion that came from the drying process. Now, like I said, this one's pretty round, so it doesn't take too many passes here. I'm probably only going to make a couple of passes, and it's hitting all the way around the turn, and everything's good. So we'll get it good and smooth. A little more speed now that I got know that it's round and it's not jumping all over the place on me, and make a good clean cut, hopefully. Spalted wood, always a problem. So it's got soft spots, hard spots, but we'll see what we can get out of this. It's dry, though sometimes it doesn't cut quite as clean. but we'll work on that as we go here. So I made 2 passes. I'm already starting a little bit of shear scraping here, see if I can get a good surface. It's nice and smooth already as far as the warpage, so it didn't take much. I probably took off less than 1/8 of an inch to get it round. So down on the bottom here I get a pretty good finish right off the skew, but right off the gouge with the shear scrape. But up on the sides was not as lucky. Was getting some tear out. So I'm going to complete going around. I'll go to the overhead view so you can see it going around here at the end. But would like to finish that process off. Get a curve established from the bottom to the top. So here I go. I'll finish it off the top portion. A couple of passes here ought to be enough again to get it clean. You can see a little bit of wobble in there, but after a couple of passes it just goes away. There's still some wobble at the top. I'm going to take care of that right here. Going to make a couple of passes with the gouge in more scraping position, just trying to get rid of the unevenness in the rim. More than anything, that's for a visual. I want to make sure that I have an established top of the bowl. I know where the rim's going to be. I know where the bottom's going to be, and I can, by eye, come up with a nice smooth curve going from all the way from the bottom to the top. So once I have the turning done so that I know I have a semi-round surface, I start to establish that rim. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to shear scrape from the bottom to the top to get myself the shape that I want, to get rid of any flat spots. I want a continuous curve, no high points in that curve. I'm trying to get a nice continuous smooth surface. So here I am shear scraping on the top. Lots of end grain coming around each time. I'm going at probably 1,000 RPM here, doing the best I can to get it smooth. But again, on this wood, it's very difficult. So, all right, my microphone's telling me I got to change battery. So let me take a break here, and I'll come back. Okay, got my batteries fixed, and we're back in business here. We're going to try at this point in time to continue to smooth the surface out with the shear scraping, get it as smooth as possible, get rid of as much of the tear out as possible. Again, that's not always possible on these spalted woods, but we do our best. So I'm doing 2 things with the shear scrape. 1, I'm refining the surface to get rid of the tear out, and 2, I'm smoothing the curve. So all the way from the bottom all the way to the top to get it the shape as best I possibly can. So the last couple of passes, just again trying to get that curve round. I don't want any breaks in that smooth curve. When you rub your hand over it, you should just feel smoothness. You should not feel any changes in direction. So I've done the best I can with my shear scrape. There's a couple of tricks you can try. You can shear scrape with wet wood, but you can also use the tool that I'm going to use with the wet wood. And this, again, is a shearing cut, but I find I get a better surface with this tool than I do with the gouge. So I'm going to wet the wood down real good here, and then I'm going to introduce a scraper. This scraper is rounded slightly at the end. It's not a flat end scraper. I've also seen people use a complete round nose scraper, do the same kind of cuts, but it's slightly rounded. Learned this from Al Sturt. You'll see the shape later on. I'll show it a couple of different times. But I take my Veritas burnisher and I turn over a burr on the end, and that gives me a real nice burr to cut with. So I'm cutting with the burr, and it's just a light cut. You can see the wood just coming off. It comes off very easily. Gives me a nice fine shaving, and really eliminates the problem we have with the tear out on these dry woods. Not perfect, especially on these spalted woods. You're still going to get some tear out. Shortly here, I'm going to change direction, put a little more water on, make sure it's wet, keep it saturated, cuts better. But I'll change the camera, and you can actually see the shape of the tool a little bit. And there you can see the 45-degree angle basically that I'm holding the tool at to give me that shear cut. And here's the overhead, so you can see the shape of that tool. It's a little bit of a curve in the end. I just ground that like I would a regular scraper, but again, it was a straight across scraper. I ground it so that it had the roundness to it. Did tick off the corners so I wouldn't catch the corners on it. And then basically just roll a burr on it. You can do it different ways. I use the Veritas, but the other way you can do it is you can just do it with honing and just hone a burr up on it. I've seen that's actually how Al Sturt does it. He carries around a little pocket hone, and he just rolls the burr up manually. So anyhow, the rest of this process here, I'm going to let it run. Turn off the recording, but whoops, there I go banging into my camera. I've got it over my shoulder. I think we get a better view that way, but I keep hitting it. So unfortunately, every once in a while it gets off center here, but I'll fix that later. But anyhow, I'm just right now all I'm doing is doing the best I can to get the shape the way I want it, continuous curve, continuous flow, and then also to get rid of all the tear out possible. Alright, basically at the end of my shear scraping, a couple little final touches just to get rid of any high points, making sure I have that nice smooth curve. Next I'm going to go into the sanding mode. Going to get the tool rest out of the way for safety, going to slow the lathe down. I'm going to go to 800 grit. I've got some inconsistencies in the surface because of the scraping. I don't do as well with that Al Sturt tool as I do with the shear scrape as far as keeping the surface smooth. But I can take that out easily with 80 grit and also work on the tear out. So I get rid of all the tear out and everything with the 80, and then I work my way up through 320, getting rid of all the sanding scratches from the previous grits. Alright, now I'm putting on my mixture of Deft sanding sealer. I call it Deft 50-50 because it's half sanding sealer, Deft sanding sealer, and half lacquer thinner. It soaks into the wood well. I don't blow the wood off after the sanding when I have a closed grain wood like this and I have tear out, because the sanding dust will fill in some of that tear out for me, and the sanding sealer will help hold it in there. It turns it the same color as the wood, so I can hide some of the tear out with this method. And also I just soak the wood down good. Any of the soft spots will then dry up and become harder, and it'll work better for me when I go to do the final sanding. The final sanding I'm going to do is a quick once over with a 320 again, because you get some grain standing up with the sanding sealer, and then I'll go up to 400, get it nice and smooth, and that'll be the end of the process as far as the finishing. And then I'll put another coat of sanding sealer on to seal it all up prior to any finish that goes on. So you hopefully can hear me now. I don't know if you saw it because I probably fast forwarded through most of the sanding, but I think it sanded up pretty nice. The one problem we have with spalted wood is there's usually some soft spots, and you end up with some wavy and lumpiness, and there's some tear out from the soft spots too. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the finish I got on this. I used a skew, chisel, I don't know what exactly you call this. This is an Al Sturt, at least a tip I got from Al Sturt. He may have got it from somebody else, but this was a flat end. Let's see, I want to go to that one there, maybe. Yeah. So this was a flat end scraper. As the other day I said a skew, but it was a flat end scraper. I rounded that off a little bit. It still has a, like a scraper does normally, has a bevel on it, but rounded it off a little bit. And then I roll a burr on it when I'm going to use it. I usually roll the burr before I put it away, so I know it's there. And then I hold it on the wood in a skewed position. So let me see if I bump my camera a few hundred times here, I'm sure. So there we go. So I hold it on the wood like this in a skewed position, not flat, but up on about a 45-degree angle, and I use that to get a scrape. Similar to a shear scrape, but that burr really gives you a finer cut than you get even with a shear scrape on a sharp gouge, and I find that it handles some of the real pesky dry woods a lot better than even the shear scraping does. But you still get a little tear out here and there. But in general, it gives a pretty good surface. So if we go and look at the final product here in the in view, you can see it's got lots and lots of color. You don't even see the grain in this. It's maple, so you wouldn't see a lot of grain, but you see a lot of color in there. The grain is running, this is the end grain here, so it's running down through the wood this way. So anyhow, that's my next attempt. I think I'm up to test video number 6. So I will cut this off here now. I'll take this off the lathe. I don't know if I can get any better views for you of it. I mean, I can zoom in real tight on it, and you can see, let's see if I hold it in the right place. You can see that grain. There's some more of it. You can probably, if I find it, some of the end grain that tore out a little bit, there's a little piece of tear out right in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. I can't even see it in the camera, and I'm standing right here, but anyhow, it's just beautiful grain. So anyhow, that's attempt number 6 at making a good video, and like I said, I will during the turning process I will dub in the voice. You got just get me here at the beginning and the end, and then we'll dub it in and see how the sound comes out. Anyhow, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again another time.